A lonely CEO, whose Christmas decorations sparkle but whose heart stays dark, finds unexpected warmth when a humble carpenter and his daughter arrive on Christmas Eve, carrying a restored chair and the gift of belonging. Before we start, make sure to subscribe and share your city name in the comments. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. The city had wrapped itself in winter's finest costume, draping strings of golden lights across every lamppost and storefront until the streets glowed like rivers of captured starlight. Snowflakes descended through the darkness like whispered prayers, each one carrying the promise that December always makes, that magic still exists for those willing to believe. And somewhere between the carolers singing on frozen corners and the children pressing their noses against toy shop windows, two worlds were about to collide in the most beautiful way. In a modest apartment building where laundry hung between fire escapes and neighbors still shared sugar and stories, Flynn Hayes was teaching his daughter that some broken things are worth saving. Flynn was 35, with hands roughened by honest work and eyes that held both sorrow and stubborn hope. He had been an architect once, designing buildings that touched the sky, but that was before the hospital bed that smelled of endings, before the funeral where snow fell like heaven was crying too, before he learned that some blueprints shatter no matter how carefully you draw them. His wife Sarah had been gone for 2 years now, but December always brought her back. She had loved Christmas with a child's wonder, decorating their tiny apartment until it looked like a snow globe come to life. Now, Flynn worked with wood instead of blueprints, repairing furniture that others had given up on, finding satisfaction in making broken things whole again. It was quieter work, humbler work, but it let him be home when Rachel needed him, and that mattered more than any skyscraper ever could. Rachel was 7, all missing teeth and boundless energy, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. She believed in Christmas the way some people believe in gravity, completely, unquestionably, with every fiber of her small being. "Daddy," she would say, tugging his sleeve as they walked past decorated windows, "Christmas is when wishes find their way home. That's why we have to make everything beautiful, so the wishes know where to land." Flynn never had the heart to tell her that some wishes get lost. Instead, he let her hang paper stars in his workshop and paint candy canes on their apartment window, watching her joy like a man warming himself by a fire he thought had gone out forever. Their neighborhood understood Christmas differently than the wealthy parts of town. Here, decorations were handmade. Strings of popcorn, paper snowflakes, lights that flickered because the wiring was old, but no one minded. The Dominican family downstairs made enough coquito for everyone. The Korean grocery owner played Christmas carols on a crackling radio. And every year, the whole block gathered for a potluck dinner where the tables groaned under dishes from a dozen different countries, proving that celebration needs no common language. This year, as Flynn strung lights outside their window while Rachel directed from below, "Higher, Daddy, the angels need to see it," he felt the familiar ache that December always brought. Sarah should be here. Sarah should be laughing at Rachel's bossiness, should be handing him hot chocolate, should be alive. But she wasn't. And somehow, Christmas kept coming anyway. Across the city, in a glass tower that scraped the clouds, Victoria Cross stood at her floor-to-ceiling windows and watched the snow fall on a world that seemed to celebrate without her. At 34, Victoria commanded empires. Her interior design company had transformed penthouses for billionaires and museums for cities. Magazine covers featured her face, sharp cheekbones, perfect hair, the kind of beauty that made people stop and stare. Her penthouse was a masterpiece of modern design, every surface gleaming, every angle calculated, every piece of furniture worth more than most people's cars, and none of it felt like home. Her staff had decorated for Christmas without asking. A towering tree in the corner, professionally trimmed in silver and white, surrounded by wrapped boxes that contained nothing because they were just for show. Garlands hung with mathematical precision. Crystal ornaments caught the light. It looked like a photograph from a luxury magazine, and it made Victoria want to scream. She hadn't always been this empty. Once, she had been a girl who made ornaments from popsicle sticks and glitter, who sang carols off-key, who believed that Christmas Eve was when miracles walked the earth. Her grandmother had taught her that. Nana, who smelled of lavender and gingerbread, who told stories by firelight, who made every December feel like being wrapped in a warm blanket. Nana had died on Christmas Day 15 years ago. Since then, the holiday had become something Victoria endured rather than celebrated. She attended company parties with a smile that never reached her eyes. She sent expensive gifts to business associates she barely knew. She sat alone in her perfect apartment and tried not to remember the woman who had made everything feel possible. The one piece of Nana she'd kept was an antique wooden chair. Simple oak, hand-carved, worn smooth by generations of use. It had crossed an ocean with Nana's family. It had held Victoria when she was small enough to curl up completely in its seat. It was the only thing in her entire penthouse that actually meant something. And 3 days before Christmas, the cleaning service broke it. Victoria came home to find the chair lying on its side, one leg snapped, the arm cracked. The cleaning company apologized profusely, offered to replace it with something new, something better. And Victoria felt something inside her crack along with the wood. She called every restoration specialist in the city. The fancy ones came, inspected the damage, and shook their heads. Too much work for a piece like this. The wood is too old. We're booked through the holidays anyway. They saw furniture. They didn't see memory. They didn't see love. It was Henry, the elderly doorman who had worked her building for 30 years, who finally offered hope. "There's a fellow in Riverside Heights," he said, his voice gentle with understanding. "Name's Flynn Hayes. He fixes things that Christmas forgot. Fixed my grandmother's rocking chair once. She wept when she saw it." Victoria wrote down the number with shaking hands. The call came on December 23rd, and Flynn almost didn't answer. He was behind on 3 projects. Rachel had a Christmas program at school, and wealthy clients usually meant more trouble than they were worth. But something in the woman's voice stopped him. The way it cracked when she described the chair, the grandmother, the desperate need to have it whole before Christmas. He recognized that sound, the grief of losing someone you loved, crystallized into terror of losing the objects they touched. "I'll come look at it today," he heard himself say. "If I can fix it, I will." Victoria's building was everything Flynn expected. Marble lobby, uniformed staff, an elevator that required a special key. Her penthouse was even more overwhelming. Walls of windows, furniture that belonged in museums, a Christmas tree that looked like it had been designed by robots, beautiful and utterly cold. But then he saw the chair. It lay in a corner like a wounded animal, and Flynn felt his heart squeeze with recognition. He knelt beside it, running his fingers over the grain, feeling the wood's history beneath his calluses. 19th century, he murmured. Oak frame, hand-carved. Someone loved this piece when they made it. "My grandmother," Victoria said, and her voice was smaller than it had been on the phone. "It's the only thing I have left of her. She died on Christmas and I—" She stopped, unable to continue. Flynn looked up and saw past the designer clothes and perfect makeup to the grief underneath. He knew that grief. He lived with it every day. "I can fix it," he said. "But I'll need to take it to my workshop. I'll try to have it back by Christmas Eve." "That's tomorrow," Victoria said, surprised. Flynn smiled, a gentle expression that transformed his tired face. "Important things shouldn't be left broken through Christmas. My wife taught me that." The word wife hung in the air, past tense. Victoria recognized that weight too. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means." As Flynn carefully lifted the chair, his phone buzzed with a video call. He answered without thinking, and Rachel's face filled the screen, bright with excitement. "Daddy?" Mrs. Rodriguez says I can bring extra cookies to the Christmas program. Can we make the ones with the sprinkles? Please, please, please. Flynn laughed, a warm sound that seemed foreign in Victoria's sterile space. We'll see, baby girl. Be good, okay? Daddy's finishing up a job. Is it a Christmas job? Are you fixing something for Santa? Something like that. I love you. Love you more. The call ended, and Victoria stood frozen. She had seen CEOs negotiate million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but she had never seen anyone speak to a child with such pure, unguarded tenderness. It made something in her chest ache in a way she didn't understand. Flynn left with the chair, and Victoria's apartment felt emptier than before, which shouldn't have been possible since it had always been empty. Christmas Eve arrived wrapped in snow and expectation. Flynn had worked through the night, his workshop warm with sawdust and determination, while Rachel slept on the small couch in the corner. By morning, the chair was whole again, not just repaired, but honored, every crack sealed with care that bordered on reverence. "It's beautiful, Daddy," Rachel said, tracing the restored arm with one small finger. "Does the lady know you fixed it?" "She will soon. We're delivering it tonight." Rachel's eyes went wide. "On Christmas Eve? Like Santa?" Flynn smiled, though worry creased his forehead. Mrs. Rodriguez, who usually watched Rachel, had called that morning with the flu. His backup options were all busy with their own holiday preparations. He couldn't leave a 7-year-old alone on Christmas Eve, but dragging her across the city in a snowstorm felt equally wrong. "Baby," he said carefully, "how would you feel about coming with Daddy to deliver the chair?" Rachel didn't hesitate. "Can I wear my Christmas dress? The one with the sparkles?" The snow fell harder as evening approached. Buses ran slow, streets grew slippery, and Flynn began to worry they wouldn't make it. He'd called Victoria to let her know, but something in her voice, a resigned sadness, the sound of someone used to disappointment, made him more determined. By the time they reached Victoria's building, both Flynn and Rachel were covered in snow, their cheeks red with cold. The chair was wrapped in blankets, protected like the treasure it was. Henry the doorman smiled when he saw them and waved them through without a word. When the elevator doors opened into Victoria's penthouse, Flynn found her standing by the window, watching the snow fall on the city below. She was dressed for a party, elegant black dress, hair perfectly styled, but something about her posture spoke of profound loneliness. She turned at the sound of the doors and froze. There, backlit by the elevator's warm light, stood a man covered in snow holding a restored chair, and beside him, a little girl in a sparkly dress clutching a paper bag of cookies. "We made it," Flynn said simply. Victoria's eyes went to the chair first, whole again, beautiful again, carrying her grandmother's memory safely into another Christmas. Tears sprang to her eyes before she could stop them. "You actually did it," she whispered. "I said I would." Rachel, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly tugged her father's coat. "Daddy, her tree is sad." Victoria blinked. "What?" Rachel pointed at the towering Christmas tree with its professional decorations and calculated perfection. "It's really pretty, but it's sad. Christmas trees are supposed to have ornaments that mean something, and people sitting around them. Yours is just lonely." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. Out of the mouths of babes, she thought, and felt her carefully constructed walls begin to crumble. "I don't," she started, then stopped. "I don't have anyone to sit around it with." Rachel looked up at her father with those large, knowing eyes that children sometimes have. Flynn understood the question without her asking it. "We don't have anywhere to be tonight," he said quietly. "Not until morning anyway. If you wanted company—" Victoria should have said no. She had a party to attend, important people to impress, a reputation to maintain. But looking at this man who had kept his promise in a snowstorm, And this child who saw through all her defenses with a single glance, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. "Please stay," she said. "Please." What followed was unlike any Christmas Eve Victoria had experienced. Flynn set down the chair while Rachel announced she was going to fix the tree. She pulled off some of the professional ornaments, carefully, respectfully, and replaced them with things from her pockets. A paper star she'd made at school, a candy cane with a bite mark. I only tasted it a little. A small drawing of 3 figures holding hands. "That's me and Daddy and you," Rachel explained, pointing. "Because you're our friend now. Friends go on the Christmas tree." Victoria's tears came freely then, and she didn't try to hide them. Flynn fixed the lights that had been strung too perfectly, making them cascade more naturally, the way real Christmas lights do in real homes. Victoria, uncertain at first, began adjusting the branches herself, remembering how Nana used to do it, not for looks, but for feeling. They shared stories while they worked. Flynn told her about Sarah, about learning to celebrate Christmas without her, about Rachel's unwavering belief that magic was real. Victoria told them about Nana, about the Christmases that smelled of gingerbread and felt like love, about the empty years since. Rachel listened with the gravity children sometimes show, then announced, "I think your grandma and my mommy are probably friends now. In heaven. They're probably watching us fix your tree and saying we're doing a good job." Flynn met Victoria's eyes over his daughter's head, and something passed between them, an understanding that needed no words. By the time they finished, the tree looked imperfect and wonderful. Rachel had scattered cookie crumbs on the designer couch. 3 mugs of hot chocolate sat on the expensive coffee table, leaving rings that would horrify the cleaning service. The penthouse, for the first time in years, looked lived in. It looked like home. "Thank you," Victoria said quietly, as Rachel dozed between them, exhausted by excitement and cocoa. "I'd forgotten what Christmas was supposed to feel like." Flynn touched the restored chair gently. "When I was fixing this, I kept thinking about all the Christmases it must have seen. All the people who sat in it, all the stories it heard. Things don't hold memory on their own. They hold it because we love them. This chair waited 15 years for you to share another Christmas with someone. I'm glad we could be here." Victoria reached for his hand without thinking. His fingers were rough with work, warm with life. "Will you come back tomorrow? For Christmas dinner? A real one, not a catered event, just—" "Yes," Flynn said. "We'd like that." Christmas morning found Victoria standing outside Flynn's workshop, holding bags of groceries and feeling more nervous than she had before any board meeting. The neighborhood was nothing like hers, smaller, louder, more alive, and when Flynn opened the door, his surprised smile made every uncertain step worth it. "You came," he said. "I wanted to learn," Victoria answered. "How to fix things, how to make them matter." She spent the morning watching him work, learning the names of tools, understanding that restoration wasn't about making things perfect. It was about honoring what they had been. Rachel appointed herself teacher's assistant, explaining everything with 7-year-old authority. Later, they walked to the neighborhood square where a massive tree stood covered in paper cards, the wishing tree, where every year people hung their hopes for Christmas to carry. Rachel had brought 3 cards. She handed them out solemnly. Flynn wrote, "I want to be brave enough to accept the things I deserve." Victoria wrote, "I want a home made of hearts, not glass." Rachel wrote in careful crayon letters, "I want Daddy to smile like he used to." They hung the cards together, and a gust of wind blew them close, tangling the strings until the 3 wishes touched. "Look!" Rachel shouted. "Our wishes found each other. That means they'll come true together." That evening, they gathered in Victoria's penthouse for Christmas dinner. Not catered, but cooked together, burnt edges and all. Rachel's cookies were lopsided but perfect. The grandmother's chair sat by the fire, finally surrounded by people again. As Rachel fell asleep on the couch, Flynn spoke softly. "This is the best Christmas I've had since Sarah died." Victoria leaned into his shoulder. "This is the first Christmas I've had where I didn't feel alone." "I don't know where this goes," Flynn admitted. "Our lives are so different." "They were," Victoria said. "But Christmas has a way of bringing things together that don't seem like they should fit." She looked at the restored chair, at the imperfect tree, at the sleeping child who had cracked her heart wide open. "Maybe that's the miracle. Not that everything becomes perfect, but that broken pieces find each other." Flynn took her hand. "I'd like to find out what we could be." "So would I." Outside, snow fell softly on a city full of lights. Somewhere, carolers sang about peace on earth. And in a penthouse that had finally become a home, 3 people who had been alone found that they weren't anymore. Because Christmas doesn't come from decorations or parties or perfectly wrapped gifts. It comes from the moment we open our doors and our hearts and let someone in. And that, more than any miracle, is what makes the season bright.